Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, March 14th, 2022. I would like to call to order this special board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. For the next 30 minutes, we will conduct a continuation of a book study that we are doing jointly as a board. So we will begin tonight with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome anyone who is either online or in the boardroom. Thank you for being here. I'd like to thank our student reps for being with us tonight. Thank you for being part of this tonight. We were scheduled to do this for an hour, but due to an unforeseen circumstance that came up, we're going to cut this down to 30 minutes. I know we had committed to reading the next 5 bad habits to finish a section of the book. If we can get through all 5 of them, that'd be fine. If we don't, that's okay too. For the public, if there's someone who is joining us tonight, we are reading or doing a book study on a book titled How Not to Be a Terrible School Board Member, Lessons for School Administrators and Board Members. So I'd like to begin tonight with kind of what we did last time, just for the student reps info. We basically read these things, and if you made any notations, have any comments, we'll go through those and discuss those. There is no particular order. So having said that, anybody who wants to start with terrible habit number 3, attack the administration in print. Real bad habit. Anyone have some outstanding notes or items they'd like to discuss?
I liked on page 15, just above the lessons learned at the very bottom of the page. In the above paragraph towards the end, it says, remember, though, that the board is responsible for hiring, evaluating, and firing just one person in the district, the superintendent. Because this chapter is about a school board member who's unhappy with the job of a principal and does the wrong thing by sending a letter to the editor to talk about how unhappy they are. And sometimes it's really easy to fall into this place of thinking that like your opinion about everything matters. Not that it doesn't, but like it kind of doesn't. You know what I mean? Where you don't, and that goes into the next chapter about micromanagement. But taking your dirty laundry to the newspaper is definitely not the answer. And we are only in charge of the employment of one person, not the principals and a teacher we don't like or anything else. So that was a good reminder. I liked it.
Something I heard that has happened a couple times lately, that, and it really wasn't one of the options, is when you see something like that and you want to write it to the editor and get it down, send it off, but don't hit that send button. Yeah. At least writing it down, you get your frustration out a little bit, and I could see where that part would work. Just don't hit that send button, keeping it to yourself. And like I say, maybe that frustration works its way out. It gives you a little bit of time to think about it afterwards without the regret of the send.
Well, even just recently, we've been getting some heated emails, and I replied. I wrote up a reply to one, and I was at like a 10 on like my I've had it list, and sent it to some people that I trusted, like it recommends you do, and everyone with a level head that I sent it to, and it wasn't many, it was just a couple family members, said, ooh, I think you should sleep on that. I don't think you should send that out today. And that was the right call, because burning everything to the ground is not, just like I said in the last sentence of that paragraph, writing that letter might make you feel good at the moment, but in the long run, it's likely to seal your fate as a terrible board member. And that is exactly what that would have done. It's just like, So, writing it out and then just never sending it.
There's been a few of the letters that have been sent to us that you start to write a response and you kind of backtrack on it a little bit
Yeah.
and say there's no.
And we've gotten emails before from people who have done the same thing, written a couple days later and said, I am so sorry for
sorry.
sending that.
Yep.
I should have taken a minute to think about that before I sent you that, so I'm sorry. And, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we totally overstep our bounds as a board member when we actually take it to print and put it out there. I mean, it undermines, as I'm reading this, I'm almost thinking, man, this is a school district that didn't have any policies, procedures, and we're just totally discombobulated. I mean, I am very thankful that, I mean, although every single one of these scenarios applies to us in one way or another, it's stuff that I almost laugh at how relevant it is, the stuff we've gone through. Talk about hearing certain things about certain people, certain employees in the district, and the urge to, if something I've learned, and people may see this as not being involved or what have you, but it's not that at all. There's people in places that take care of these things, and ultimately we have one employee, and the delegation is there. And I think you undermine that, like this terrible habit. You know, you put the district, you put the superintendent, you put your fellow board members in a situation where, you know, they may or may not have to defend you now or agree with you or not. And if we're not in unison, you know, that looks like a broken board and different opinions and things of that nature. But, you know, the fact that, you know, I would hope, I think I've said this from this same mic a time or two, we're not here with personal agendas. At the end of the day, I love the fact that every time there's a question or a proposition or an idea that comes to us, Pete's answer or his charge to us has been, how does this help the kids of this district? Are we doing this? When we do this, how does this better this school district? How does it better everyone involved here? And I think with every single one of these scenarios, you know, it's going to get repetitive because as I read these, I think if we're at the at the forefront of everything we do, we ask that question. These things take care of themselves. But human nature is going to kick in. You get what you think is a hot tip from a credible source, and you're like, oh my God, I got to do something here. If I don't, they're going to think, you know, we didn't do something here, or we don't care, or what have you. And that's not the case at all. We care about everything. And, you know, there's people in the district that take care of these specific scenarios. And in this particular case, take your information to the superintendent and give them the time to carry out a thorough process. You know, the personnel, there's a process there. And I think, you know, that was the best option to take. But it's very tempting to accommodate any one of these scenarios and say, but you know, make it clear in your letter that you're writing as an individual and not a representative of the school district. No matter, you know, you can say that, but it's not going to be seen that way. You know, optics are everything.
No, especially in a small community. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
But no, definitely a lesson to learn that one way to not be a terrible school board member is to, you know, in the heat of the battle or in the time of anger or frustration, you go and you do something that you're later going to regret. That's what I took from this bad habit.
Well, something I always think of is the chain of command, and hopefully we all try to remember to do the chain of command. It will save us all. One of the things I saw, though, that suggestions that he gave us, he said, especially apply to new social media venues such as Facebook and Twitter, where your comments can be spread widely, instantly, and inaccurately. So
Yeah.
we want to be careful. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, lots of good points. I guess one part about, it ties into the next chapter about micromanagement, that school boards in Washington State are set up that my role as superintendent is to be secretary to the board. And when you're that kind of partnership, it means that some things are going to be secret, but it also means we're going to look out for each other. And, you know, me putting something in print without letting you know or putting you in a bad spot or you doing that to me, I think would be an indication that, you know, it's not as a healthy partnership as it can be. And I haven't had those experiences with you all. So this, it's good to sort of read these examples that don't apply to us, right? Like we're not living that. The other piece about, I think about, because we don't have a local paper anymore. You know, we talked about that with how do you advertise bonds and levies and get the messaging out, and that certainly social media is a powerful tool for that. But it's also a tool that folks can use to take shots at folks anonymously. I've heard it described as digital courage, right? It's folks can take advantage of that distance that they have and say things that may or may not be true. And you all, I imagine, get put in a spot where you can't respond because you might have information and folks might want you to, and you might want to. But that's a difficult challenge for all of us. So I think when the management team is working well, that these kinds of issues don't come up. And if there's a rogue member that does it, I guess it's up to the rest of us to make sure to let them know that's not how we behave.
Board Member Stevenson is not with us tonight, but she is online via Zoom. Do you have a comment, Jen?
I thought it was interesting that he referenced social media because I can't remember exactly what year this book was written, but just like Pete and Sharon were starting to share about social media is all we have in Othello. And so all of these chapters for me were all about rogue board members that have done, that have gone out on their own and done their own thing. And seeing what's happening in other districts around us, especially one that's like highly publicized right now, they actually have 2 rogue board members in this other district that's having a lot of problems and trying to push things through quickly and do things that they don't, I don't know if it's that they're new and they don't understand yet, or anyways, crazy things that one rogue board member could destroy the relationship of a board and superintendent for an entire community and district.
Absolutely. Student reps don't know if, I don't want to exclude you guys. Do you guys have anything you want to add or anything? Okay. Very good. We'll move on to terrible habit number 4. Micromanage the superintendent. 35-foot view. I don't want to say a board member has a neighbor apparently who's a computer expert, and he's just telling them that all the stuff at the computer lab at the school is outdated, it's not relevant, it doesn't apply to the policies of the district. You should hire me to come in and consult. You need to go look at those computers and see for yourself, yada, yada, yada. And basically, what do you do? This board member goes in there and researches this and sees that some of the stuff is out of compliance or didn't go through the proper channel. What do we do there? Is it our job? How far do we take this, and how should we react to anything that we do find? So that's kind of the narrative of this bad habit, micromanaging the superintendent. So
I think all of us do a pretty good job of, well, at least try to anyway, of not doing this. I know I'm very cognizant of, even if I'm going to a classroom because it's my daughter's birthday, to drop off cupcakes, like just trying to just be very aware of conversations I have, people I interact with, how many people I see, the amount of disruption I'm causing. I try to keep that very minimal. And if we're not there on a site visit, I don't make it my business or my place to just be inserting myself around the school. If I'm there for a very intentional purpose, I go there to do that thing and then I leave. Just because that's what's appropriate. You don't disrupt people's day and start telling people how to do their job. I wouldn't want someone to come to my work and tell me how to run my job. So it's just, not appropriate. And it gives us a list of things that actually are our responsibility on page 22. So I just went through and underlined all of that. We have specific roles, and it's not a micromanager.
Yeah, overseer is the word that comes out a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glad. In spite of your good intentions and undeniable dedication, you've crossed the dreaded line from school board member to micromanager. When you want to manage an organization by paying extreme attention to small details, you have become a micromanager. In crossing that line into detailed management of the district, you have introduced rather rudely into the school administration's job and thereby have become a terrible school board member. This person goes on to want to recommend that they hire the neighbor and basically take charge there. I also highlighted that, school visits and moderation show your interest in the school. I thought that was it's a great comment. we don't want to be, we don't need people afraid when we go thinking we're there for a specific reason or whatnot. We've been challenged to be at the schools more, and I think we should take that challenge and try to do the best that we can there. But no, I agree with the superintendent. We are, I think, in a very good place where, for the most part, I mean, we know what our roles are, we know where we stand, what we can and can't do. Unfortunately, through trial and error, in my case, you know, there's been an instance or two where maybe I said a little too much that I shouldn't have, and you know, it's human nature. You think, it's a fine line, I can cross this, I'm not gonna offend anyone by saying this or that. I mean, nothing serious or anything, but there's, this is, if anything, although, like I said, I think repetitive at times with the intent here, it does bring to mind that there are some fine lines as a school board member that we have to adhere to. It's real easy to take it upon yourself to think that there's some sort of authority that comes with the school member tag or anything like that, and it really doesn't. We are overseers of the district. We hire and fire one employee. We delegate the smooth running or the operation or function of the district to the superintendent, and that's who we have our relationship with. And I hope to God that it never comes to the point where we do micromanage, because that's not at all the intent. Once you get into that, it's like us trying to run the district, and I, for one, I don't want to be a district, running the district that way. So I thought it was very neat that we're not micromanaging the superintendent, at least I don't think we are.
Yeah, and you know, the public's view of it, sometimes there's a lot of those little things that they're wondering why we're not involved in, and it's, you gotta constantly, not constantly, but remind them, hey, that ain't my role. My role is the superintendent.
Someone's always watching you, so that's kind of what I
Yeah.
were like, okay. And I know, I'm sorry, I haven't been in the schools as much, but I think we've had a lot of meetings this last year, and it's taken a lot more time out of our daily lives that we have to work at, but we still have some time left. So, yeah.
Jen, got a comment?
Nope, sounds good, I agree.
All right. Pete?
I guess one thing that I think is an interesting observation around policy governance is I think this kind of chapter is why something like policy governance came to be. Because folks thought they could create structures and systems to define the roles and the boundaries, and people were going to follow the rules. But it really comes down to the people. Even if you have policy governance, if you don't stay in your lane, right, each of us with our roles and responsibilities, you can mess up the roadway a little bit. And what I have been impressed with you all is that transition away from policy governance was a bit scary for all of us. How do we make an agenda? How are the meetings going to run? Are we still going to have influence? Those kinds of things. But we've been able to pick it up and keep it going. And I think one of the reasons the micromanagement part isn't a significant concern for the district or for you is because some of those learnings from policy governance, we really have maintained those roles and responsibilities. So, but I guess the curious thing about policy government, even if you have that, and there are some districts that do, you can still cross those lines. You can still get into an area that is not your responsibility.
Very good. Terrible habit number 5. Never question the administration. The scenario, I think it's there's a maintenance and operation gentleman who makes a presentation on a project, and I don't know if the board members, they did work in construction, I believe, previously, and they thought they knew how to do this better. They should not do this, do that. Why aren't we doing this? And he's got a myriad of questions that I think it's a he, yeah. And you know, I live by, I'd rather ask 100 stupid questions than make one dumb mistake. So I ask a lot of questions. But I've also learned in my role as a board member that I'm going to make pertinent questions. I mean, I'm not going to ask a question just to ask it, because it can be real easy, and you fall into the whole micromanagement portion of this, questioning things that really, you posing the question isn't going to change the outcome. a technicality, it's just, you know, we have these people in place, and I think that the district has done a great job of putting the right people in the right positions with the right expertise. I know that the hiring process is just that. I mean, you look at their qualifications, you look at past experience, and I think we're doing a terrific job of hiring and putting the right people in the right position. But questioning things, I don't think is really out of line as long as they're within bounds. I mean, a lot of times, there's no need to ask, you know, 50 questions over something that, you know, the answer isn't going to change the outcome, and it is what it is.
To me, it kind of lines up two different types of questions. There's the question of understanding the decision, and there's the question of why'd you make the decision, you know? And that's what we got to remember is the questions should be lined up as to understand why the decision was made, not to question.
So
The other way.
I checked both 3 and 4. Oops, sorry. I checked both 3 and 4. Because 3 says, to, you know, send the questions before the meeting.
Mhm.
And then 4 said, you know, ask your questions until you're fully satisfied. Because I think both are important. And sometimes when when you're the person who's being asked the questions, I learned this lesson a long time ago. Sometimes it's how you interpret what people are asking you. So there's a difference between asking questions and being questioned.
Yes.
And so I think asking questions is very appropriate. Questioning someone feels more personal, like their intentions are bad, or it's a poor reflection on their character, or they're trying to be dishonest. It's personal. And so as long as we stay in the realm of asking questions to get answers and clarification and not questioning people in a way that's personal, I think that's great. And then also, as the person being questioned, whether it's us being questioned from the community or Amy being questioned from us or whoever it is that's answering some financial questions, or Greg in this case, it's also about just keeping the attitude of, I'm not being questioned, so don't take this, don't get defensive. They're asking questions because they don't understand. So I had to remind myself of that several times during when we were preparing for the bond vote. And people would say, you know, why aren't you guys building on the land? And just different things where it was like, I'm not being questioned. They're just asking questions. So part of it is on ownership on the person asking the question, and then ownership on the person who's giving the answer to just take it as questions being asked, not being questioned.
I just think clarification for us to kind of be able to know which direction to go, but I would be certainly the first to ask Pete.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's the time and a place to ask questions. And like I said, I'd rather ask 1,000 dumb ones than make the one dumb mistake. But yeah, that's a great analogy, Lindsay. I mean, you're not being questioned, so as long as we keep the tone of the question, and it's with again, the interest in the answer being, you know, the outcome. You know, I want to know because I want this to be the best it can be. I want to ask this question about this curriculum because I want it to be the right one. I'm questioning the price of this because I've heard this. You know, as long as we're asking the questions with the right intent, I think we'll be good. Pete?
So.
Oh, Jen, I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead.
That's okay. On page 27, basically what you've been saying, there's a couple of sentences under lessons learned that ask questions. When you ask a question, you are not questioning the administration's competence or motives or commitment. You are simply doing the people's work, making sure the issue is crystal clear to you before a vote is taken. And I think we've all basically said that, but I think that probably all of us have voted on something and then realized something later on, or thought we understood it, didn't fully understand it. Because I think that we've all asked each other, did you know that that's what we were voting on? Because there's a lot of And no, we don't always understand all of the ramifications and the details and all of that stuff, but I do think that we as a board are good at trying to make sure that we do understand, not only for just ourselves, but also for the community that does watch or listen. Asking those questions appropriately, and I hope that the district staff and that the superintendent feels that way as well. That we're asking the questions appropriately and that they know that it's for us trying to understand or express that something's not clear.
And I think this administration that we have in place right now has been very good with this board on trying to get some clarity in some of the decisions and stuff that we've been making, and I've been thoroughly happy with that and impressed.
Yeah, Ken, I appreciate that, and the folks that are asked those questions on the team, I know they feel the same way, that they've been. I think the heart of this one for me is context. When and where are the questions asked, and for what purpose? So, and Ken identified something that happens in AVID, and it's levels of questioning. And what Ken talked about were level 2 questions. So I had a conversation with Director Stevenson last week, and I think I'm going to share this example. She asked me about time and memorial curriculum for the district. What are we using? But that's how she asked it. And so it really was like, can you name it, Pete? Can you tell me what it is? I can answer that question. And maybe even in a meeting, it's a simple one. That's a level 1 question. And it was appropriate for the setting. But if in a public board meeting, she said to me, because she had some information, can you distinguish between the OSD's curriculum for social studies and the state's recommended curriculum for time and memorial instruction? And could you share with us and the community why you picked that? And just says that cold, right? And so I haven't had a chance to talk with the folks who might give the best answer for doing the people's work. I haven't been given the opportunity to say, where's that coming from? Right? And that hasn't been my experience with you all. And it gets back to what you were all sharing. Not questioning me or the other folks on the team, but just asking questions. That's what you're supposed to do. So I think there's a fine line there, though, when you cross into questioning the individual.
All right. Very good. Well, due to time constraints, we're going to drop it off there. We will make a later announcement on when we will resume the book study. We will now go into recess for about 2 minutes and reconvene in Pete's office. The board will recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss potential real estate sale or lease. No action will be taken following the executive session. We will be out here for our regular